9 seconds later, that trooper shoots Mubarak Soulemane 7 times.
We got the first and only grant from National Geographic Society and the Darwin Initiative, also first and only grant given to Palestinians.
Hello, my name is Stanley Heller. Welcome to The Struggle. The Struggle is shown on over 30 cable stations from Maine to New York City and points west. Upcoming on Wednesday, February 5th, an important rally in Hartford, Connecticut against a proposed killingly fracked gas power plant. Governor Lamont says he's undecided. The people need to convince him. The rally starts at noon at DEEP at 79 Elm Street. DEEP stands for the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. After a couple speakers, there'll be a march to the state capitol to the north side where the rallies usually take place. Speakers and music should start there around 12:30. The reason that hour was chosen was because that's the first day of the Connecticut legislative session. We want to greet the legislators with the message, cancel the fracked gas, climate death power plant. Last week we showed the protest over the killing of 19-year-old Mubarak Soulemane in West Haven, Connecticut. He supposedly stole a car at knife point and was chased for 30 miles by state police before exiting in the seaside city of West Haven. Now, we at TSVN did a very close examination of state police body cam footage. Here's the car Soulemane was driving. Notice the timestamp, 17:04:37. So that's 5 p.m., 4 minutes, and 37 seconds. 5 seconds later, the car was under I-95 where it hit a parked car and stopped. 6 seconds later, it was surrounded by state and city police cars. Within seconds, an officer demanded Soulemane get out of the car. 25 seconds later, a state trooper is calling for Soulemane to be shot with a taser. You see, he's pointing to his taser. 9 seconds later, that trooper shoots Mubarak Soulemane 7 times. From the time the car was surrounded until the time the trooper shot was around 30 seconds. 30 seconds. Now, what was going on the other side of the car? For that, we rely on CNN's broadcast of trooper body cam footage that unfortunately does not have a timestamp. Here's that picture you saw before, 55 seconds in on this CNN compilation. 8 seconds later, on the passenger side, a policeman or trooper starts banging on a window with his hand or an object. 8 seconds after that, he starts using a baton to smash the window. The video goes back to the driver's side 3 seconds later. 5 seconds after that, the baton succeeds in smashing the window. 5 seconds later, the trooper starts shooting. So here's what we can make out. The car Soulemane was driving was completely surrounded. The windows were up. He had no place to go. The police certainly could have talked to him and waited him out. Police began smashing the car window a bit over 16 seconds after surrounding the car. Around 13 seconds later, an officer shoots Soulemane 7 times. What can justify that? Is this super aggressiveness standard Connecticut State Police or West Haven police policy? The people have a right to know. On the 25th of January, there were a number of anti-Iran war rallies in many U.S. cities. The one in Hartford featured several young anti-war veterans. We were told to support the troops. Listen to them now.
1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3, 4.
We don't want war.
We don't want war.
1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3, 4.
We don't want war.
We don't want war.
Not our country, not our oil.
Not our country, not our oil.
Keep the troops off foreign soil.
Keep the troops off foreign soil.
Not our country, not our oil.
Not our country, not our oil.
Keep the troops off foreign soil.
Keep the troops off foreign soil.
All right, up next we have Eric. He's a veteran of the Iraq War, and he's with the Central Democratic Socialists of America.
Right, Eric.
I'm actually a veteran of Afghanistan, but it's all no worries. Mitch has taken a couple hits, so I'll let him off the hook. So yeah, I was a Marine Corps rifleman. I deployed to Afghanistan in the summer of 2011. I didn't see super heavy combat. I only got shot at the last week I was there, but I certainly saw enough of that war to realize that, you know, just like Dan was saying, just like all of the other people have been saying, we're not over there to help those people. We're not over there to bring them democracy, to make their lives better. What we're over there doing is, well, I kind of found out recently, there's a news article about a month or two ago that found a new resource deposit in Afghanistan, potential new source of heavy metals, and the geographical survey that discovered those happened while I was in that area, securing that area for those geologists to go in there and evaluate the resources of Afghanistan for extraction. That was my job there. I didn't find that out until 2 months ago.
All right, so my name's, is this working? Okay. My name's Kyle Spalding. I was a leader in Quiet Corner DSA for a couple of years.
I'm gonna get up here. So
Yeah.
Touch it to your chin.
I was a leader in Quiet Corner DSA for a couple of years, and I'm also a Marine Corps veteran. When I was 19, I decided to drop out of school and join the military. I truly believed I could serve a better purpose and do something to better my community, but I couldn't have been more wrong. I was never taught a single lesson about how we were going to help the people in Iraq and Afghanistan. We were taught that all of the people from these regions were radical Islamists. We would only refer to these people using slurs. Every day we rationalized and normalized violence. Every day we broke formation and we would shout, "Kill babies." It doesn't take much to figure out which babies we were talking about. I see this racist and violent attitude seeping into our society every day. Those attitudes are exported overseas and then reintroduced to our communities.
Salam alaikum, everyone. My name's Nazanin, and my family's Iranian, and I have over 100 members of my family in Iran right now. And the first thing I'll say, which is I feel missing at these these kinds of spaces, is I stand with my people in their struggle, in the hardship they're facing, for fighting 40 years of a brutal counter-revolution, in the midst of having US guns pointed at them, knowing that even if they overthrow this government, which they do, want to, and they will, and they'll succeed, that there's still guns pointed at them, and this war machine's still a threat to them. We have to get past this rhetoric that our struggles are inherently separate, because we have to understand that the current regime is brutal, a ruthless theocracy, but it's been saved twice by US intervention. When it came into power, it had very little public support. Its grip on power was tenuous. It had to kill lots of people to stay in power. But then the Iran-Iraq War happened, where Iraq invaded Iran at US guidance, and it created this culture of martyrdom and hyper-nationalism that helped the regime survive. Then, as it was starting to collapse again in the late 1900s, the Iraq War happened. And the US destabilized Iraq so much that Iran was able to make Iraq its de facto colony, and able to use neoliberal mechanisms to help itself. So when we're seeing these people claim they're against the Iranian regime, they need to understand the sanctions, they hurt working people, they hurt everyday people, and the criminals who run the regime are just fine. They're part of the same neoliberal order. Russia's got their back, and Russia works with the US. So we need to stop looking at this in terms of geopolitics or this war machine and this war machine, and have a stance that stands with the people. That means following their struggle, listening to their stories.
I served in Afghanistan in 2010. I was there for a year. I was a signals intelligence officer. I'd been trained at the NSA, and my job was to basically visit a number of my Marines. I had about 80 of them spread across an area of operations the size of basically Connecticut. And it was during those travels and going on foot patrols and other operations with my Marines that I saw our Marines get hurt and killed, and then more lastingly for myself, I saw Afghans get hurt and killed, and I took part in those killings. But I'm not going to talk about that right now. I want to talk about something else. Since Souleimane's assassination, we've heard a lot about escalation and de-escalation, and I've been thinking about that a lot lately, because this happens a lot where our leader, whether it's President Trump or before him President Obama, almost goes to war with someone, whether it's Assad in Syria, whether it's the Iranian regime. And at first we hear a lot about escalation. Is the president going to escalate? Is the US government going to escalate? And then at some point there's de-escalation. And then the media celebrates the de-escalation. And everyone's like, oh, we avoided catastrophe this time. And what I learned in Afghanistan, if there's one thing I learned, it's that our system is escalatory. Our system is a system of escalation. And catastrophe isn't something that we're always avoiding. It's something that's already here. It's something that's here every day for so many. In America, in Afghanistan, in Iran, in Iraq, in Palestine. When I was in Afghanistan, like I said, I saw people get hurt and killed. But I also saw hundreds of children, undernourished and malnourished, chasing our vehicles, begging for water. I saw children terrified, hiding behind trees as we patrolled by them, or as we shot into the distance. I saw farmers look the other way or run away whenever our vehicles or our patrols went by. And there's one thing I remember in particular. I remember being on one outpost, and I remember looking at the flagpole, and you had the American flag, and it was shiny and it was, well kept. And then you had the Afghan flag next to it, and it was in total tatters. It was broken in half. And I remember that moment especially because I think it really spoke to American empire and to the American mentality.
All right, so my name's Mitch Link. Me and a few others got together because we saw that there was not really an anti-war movement here in Hartford. So we came together to plan this rally, which is a national day of action to say U.S. hands off Iran, U.S. out of the Middle East, okay? I joined the Marine Corps when I was 17. I believed at the time that all the ads that they show, you'll be part of a family, you're gonna bring democracy to the world, you're not gonna have to wonder about whether or not your life mattered, because you're gonna do something bigger than yourself. So I went to Iraq in March of 2006. And it wasn't long before I realized that was all lies. This moment stands clear in my mind. We're patrolling through the city of Fallujah, and some kids, maybe 15, 16 years old, took some shots at us from a rooftop and ran off. We took cover in a house, and this wave washed over me. That I had so much more in common with those kids that were shooting at me, regardless of where we grew up, what religion we followed or didn't, what language we spoke, our economic status. I had more in common with those kids than I did with anyone who decided we should be there shooting at each other. So as my time in Iraq came to a close, I started to have thoughts. Did we make Iraq a better place? No, absolutely not. For the trillions of dollars we spent in Iraq and Afghanistan, is the world a more just or equitable place? Absolutely not. For the 700,000 Iraqis that died, is the world a better place? No. For the 22 veterans that commit suicide in this country every single day, from the trauma of fighting unjust wars for a country that forgets about them as soon as they get home.
We show you now the second third of Mazin Qumsiyeh's Shafer lecture for promoting enduring peace. This on a week when Trump finally released his deal of the century. Of course, it's a total joke, an apartheid plan. Obviously, no Palestinian would agree to it. But it's real. It's a desperate attempt to help indicted Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, who will ferociously expand settlements and annex more and more Palestinian land in an attempt to win votes.
Now, that's the outcome. That's prognosis, as we say in the medical field. The therapy, of course, is resistance. And resistance can be by many ways. Even going to school is resistance, like these girls trying to get to school and sit in the street and have their class because the soldier prevents them from getting to school, etc. Resistance, of course, is not cheap. And so far we've lost 100,000 natives, and you heard the story of Yusuf's friend, for example, and others. Over 800,000 have been injured, and over 700,000, actually close to 1 million, somebody corrected me the other day, who have been imprisoned or jailed. This is me being arrested a few times, and I personally lost 19 of my personal friends, just like Yusuf lost some friends in their struggle. This is, for example, Bassem Abu Rahma was shot with a tear gas canister that crushed his heart. And I went to his funeral, and a month later I went to visit his family, and his sister Jawahir showed me the room that he was, his room, and unfortunately she herself was killed by inhaling tear gas at the same weekly demonstration in Belain. This is the last friend I lost, Bassel Araj, very smart young man who actually we employed at the Palestinian Museum in Birzeit and also at our museum as a contractor because he lost his job as a pharmacist due to his political activism. And then he was experimenting with the resistance and various forms of resistance. Here he and I are standing in front of a bus stop, and he's wearing a t-shirt on boycott, divestment, sanctions. And the reason we were standing in front of a bus stop is we called it Palestine Freedom Riders to show that Israel is a racist state, that we're not allowed on these public buses as Palestinian Christian and Muslim. You know, Bassel Araj is Muslim, my family is Christian, and we're not allowed on these buses. I'm not allowed to Jerusalem even with my US passport, by the way. So anyways, we were trying to demonstrate that, and of course I dragged us out of the bus, and they beat Bassel and all the young people. I wasn't beaten at that time. I guess maybe deference to my age. But anyways, so we opened the first actually ethnography research museum in our Museum of Natural History. That's happened since I visited here last, when I spoke here 2.5 years ago, if you remember, Faisal, in June, I think, or July 2017.
18.
17, actually.
No, 18 here. We weren't open in 17.
Okay. Anyways, okay, so a while ago I spoke here, but we hadn't opened the museum yet of ethnography, and now we have Museum of Ethnography. If those of you who visited us can now visit, they'll see where we keep all the agricultural tools, instruments, even beehives that our ancestors, the Canaanitic ancestors, used to make from straw and mud and things like that. This is at the opening of the museum, and you can see both tangible and intangible being shown on TVs and stuff like that in this museum. We work also not just to have a museum, we work with the communities on conservation, because as I said earlier, the vision of the museum is sustainable human and natural communities. So to sustain human and natural communities, you have to make sure that people have a buy-in into their own sustainability and the sustainability of the nature around them. So, for example, we have some work in Wadi Zarqa that we protected an area that's very endangered, supported by the Belgian government and so forth. We work with children regularly in all the communities we work in to show them how to recycle and upcycle things. And we even have a community garden now in the museum for the children of the two nearby refugee camps, which are Azza and Aida, to come and basically plant their own plants and also learn about technologies like aquaculture and aquaponics. And aquaponics grows fish that the volunteers eat. We did some work on climate change that's tailored to the local community. This is a project funded by the city of Geneva, where we did basically systems of protection of the environment and reducing our carbon footprint, etc., via innovative tools. This is a project that we did in a World Heritage Site, as Stan mentioned. We got the first and only grant from National Geographic Society, and the Darwin Initiative also first and only grant given to Palestinians to basically protect this valley and the communities around it. The communities around it include Batir, Al-Walaja, where I was arrested about 7 or 8 times, and Al-Walaja, Batir, Hussan, and Beit Jala. These are just some of our staff whom we sent. For example, the lower left-hand corner, Muhammad Abusar, Muhammad Najajra, and Rina Saeed, who went to Geneva on this climate change project. Muhammad Abu Sarhan in the upper right-hand corner started with me as high school volunteer, and now he is, I can't tell you how genius this kid is. He published his first paper when he was in first year of college, studying biology, and then he's doing his master degree now with me, and he's already published something like 8 research papers, and he just finished writing our annual report, all on his own. He gathered all the information, annual 2019 report for the museum, which is beautiful. I'll share it with you. That's why please sign the email list that moved around. We started a group called the Palestine Action for the Planet, where we, for example, distributed this very small piece of paper to people, and thousands of people we distributed this paper to, basically to encourage them to protect nature and deal with the situation. We opened the museum in April 2017, but as I mentioned, we opened the ethnography exhibit after I came here in April 2019, which is last year basically, and we hope to open the Green Building in 2021. Our museum has become a role model for people around the world, and part of it is we also don't just do it and be quiet about it. We actually publish research papers like these two about the role of these museums. And this, as you can imagine, brings out the name of Palestine international papers like Bioscience and International Journal of Environmental Studies. Again, the Zionists are not very happy about this, but this attracts a lot of attention to us, and we got invited to speak to a number of places. And I spoke in the United Arab Emirates, Jordan, Egypt, and Uganda to groups who were interested in emulating us and doing the same as we are doing. And just last week, I was awarded a prize when I'm going to Abu Dhabi to receive an environmental prize for the work of the museum. Our keys to success is that we do research first. We know what we are talking about. And the second is collaboration locally and internationally. And the third is our motto, which is respect. First, as Palestinians, we respect ourselves. The first 2 years in this museum, by the way, I had no staff, no volunteers, I had volunteers. I didn't have staff, I didn't have any outside money, nothing. It was all done with our internal resources. That's self-respect. After that, we started getting support from outside. And I say respect ourselves first, second, respect other people, other cultures, other backgrounds, and third, respect nature. They have to be in that order. A Palestinian who throws a cigarette out of the car is not first respecting himself before they show respect for others or respect for nature. So we also use time wisely, we use IT. My son, sometimes I think the jigsaw puzzle comes out without me planning it. Turns out my son is a computer whiz because he graduated from MIT, worked as a software engineer at Google. So he even invented a book scanner that he brought and assembled to us in Palestine, basically smuggled it through Israeli customs. And we can scan books and share knowledge with thousands of people around the world. I'm a person who doesn't believe in copyright, so even my book you can find on my website, and my publisher is not happy about this. But anyways, I believe knowledge should be shared. Innovation and motivation is important. This is what the museum will look like in a few years, or 2 years when we open it. Now, how can you help? First, being here is very important, I appreciate it. But you can also come and volunteer if you choose to. These are one of our international volunteers decorating the upper pool. These are a bunch of international volunteers working to make the apricot jam during the apricot season. We have our garden has lots of fruits and vegetables and things like that. I finally want to say, put this picture in the end, because I think it's a picture that illustrates Palestine in what I call the beauty of Palestine.
That's our program for today. See you next week at this time. I'm Stanley Heller for The Struggle.